We've got a joint here which is called a mortise and tenon joint, and this part is the tenon and this bit is called the mortise. A wee bit like a mortise lock in your house that goes into the square hole when you lock your key in the door. It's a very, very strong joint. Anyway, to create our mortise, which is the square hole, we can either use something called a mortise machine, which you might have seen in another video, or we can use this thing here, which is called a mortise chisel, right? Which is the by hand. So if you're going to cut a mortise by hand, you need to use this mortise chisel. And a mortise chisel has a wooden handle that you can hit with a mallet. It's got something called a ferrule, which stops the wooden handle from splitting, and it's also got a leather washer in here, and it means because you've got to strike this chisel much harder than you would a bevel edge chisel, it acts like a little shock absorber, and it stops the handle of the chisel from splitting as you're hitting it hard with your mallet. Okay, to set a mortise gauge, I need to set the distance between the two spurs. And there's a range of different chisels or mortise chisels that you get, and they're all different sizes. Now the one that we want is going to be a 6mm mortise chisel. So I'm going to use the chisel to set the distance between the two spurs to exactly the 6mm. So that's exactly the right size. And then I'm going to lock it in place. And that's going to keep them the same. Now what I want to do is I need to get these two spurs in the middle of this bit of material. What I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen off this thumb screw, and I'm going to move the stock along the stem a little bit, and I'm going to guesstimate where the centre is going to be. So I'm going to think, I think that's quite accurate, and I'm going to lock it in place. Then I'm going to press the two spurs in from one side. I'm going to mark 2 dots, or you can draw 2 lines. And then I'm going to turn it round, and I'm going to do the same from the other side. Now, if they match up with each other, we're exactly in the centre, and if they don't, we need to make a little adjustment. Now, at the moment, these two spurs need to move in a little bit. So I'm just going to give it a gentle tap to move them in, and now that's in between the two spurs that I've made. I'm going to press in from one side, press in from the other, and now they're matching up. I'm now in the centre. Right, what I want to do is I want to measure the position of where I'm going to put this mortise. So I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to measure down 25mm. So I'm going to set up the 0 on the end of the bit of wood, count down 25mm or 2.5 centimetres and make a little mark. Then I'm going to take my tri-square and I'm going to use to mark where the start of my mortise is going to be. And then I'm going to use my bit of wood to mark the length of the mortise. I'm still going to use my tri-square to draw my line at 90 degrees. So that's going to be the width. I'm now going to get my mortise gauge, which we set up earlier, and I'm going to just use that to mark the two parallel lines which is going to be the width of my tenon. Take the pencil, darken in the two lines, and then hatch off the waste. Okay, right now, to use my mortise chisel, I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to use the flat side of the chisel, and I'm just going to mark where I would like the mortise to start and where I would like the mortise to end. Okay, and that's just cutting the fibres of the wood. You don't have to go in too deep. Just going to tighten this up in my vise a little bit. And now I'm going to turn the chisel round the other way, and I'm going to move back a couple of millimetres, chisel at roughly 45 degrees. I'm going to tap in, and then I'm going to move back a couple of millimetres, tap in, and I'm working my way back along the line, taking off a little bit at a time. Making sure the chisel stays in between the two lines. And I'm going to go back this way. A little bit deeper. I'll break these bits off. And then I'll work from the other direction. Keep working my way back. Use the chisel. I'm going to hit this a bit firmer now. A bit of a deeper hole. A deeper hole. To make sure that our mortise is the correct depth, I'm going to take my mortise chisel. I'm going to put it against the tenon that I want to put into the mortise, and I'm going to mark the depth using my pencil. Then I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it at the side. I can use that to check my depth. And now that is, I know that my chisel is in the correct depth. And the mortise should fit in nicely and go in together there. Right, the next joint or part of a joint I'm going to show you to make is a tenon. Now a tenon you can use for creating part of a bridle joint, or it can also be part of a mortise and tenon joint. Right, to mark out a tenon, again I'm going to use a steel rule, tri-square and a mortise gauge. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where the shoulder is going to be. So in this case I would like the shoulder to be 35mm in from the end. So I'm going to set my ruler up on the 0 at the end. I'm going to count in 35mm, make a little mark, take my tri-square, put my pencil on the top of the line, slide up till it touches the pencil, and draw a line. Put the pencil on the top of the line, so it matches nice and accurately. Do the same on the other side. And then working my way around. Okay, and then the line should match all the way around. So I've marked a shoulder all the way around a piece of wood. Put it in my bench vise. I'm going to take my mortise gauge, which is already set up. It's set up to 6mm between the two spurs, and it's also in the centre of the bit of material. And I'm just going to use that to mark the width of my tenon. I'm going to go across the top of the grain, down one side, and then the other. I'm just going to take my pencil, pop it in the groove. Just darken the lines. And then I'm going to hatch off the waist. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some knifing and notching. So take my knife, pop it on the top of the line where I'm going to cut the shoulder, slide the tri-square up to it touches, and I'm just going to cut the fibres of the wood so I get a nice straight line. Take my bevel edge chisel, 45 degrees, a little bit of the chisel at a time, pushing in at 45 degrees, making a groove or a notch. Hence it's called knifing and notching. And I'll do that from one side. I'm going to do it from the other side. So knifing. Chisel for the notching. 45 degrees. A little bit of the chisel at a time. Working my way along. the back of the chisel, remove the bits of material. I'm going to take my tenon saw, pop it in the notch, and cut down to make sure you cut down to the line on both sides. Cut down to the line at both sides. Now I'm going to line the vise up with where I want to chisel down to. I'm going to just... Okay, so that's the line I want to chisel down to. It's in line with my vise. Take my chisel round the correct way, take off the corner, begin to angle the chisel up. And the other side. Chisel to remove most of the material, and I'm going to flip the chisel around the other way, pressing down hard on the blade, working in from the front. Halfway. Flip it around the other way, line up where I'm wanting to cut down to. Again, no filing, keep it nice and flat. That's one bit done. And I'm going to repeat the process on the other side. So line up the depth of the cut with the top of the vise, bevel edge chisel, to remove the waste. Box it well at an angle. To remove a little bit in the middle, angle your chisel up a little bit sharper. Move the middle bit. Take your chisel, flip it around the other way, on the front, working in your way in towards the middle. Flip it around the other way. Take your time, nicely lined up. Keep the chisel flat. We've got our